Hello, in this video, we will learn how to write any number pattern program in Python. Now, when you search the internet, there are so many video playlists with 30 plus videos or lengthy blogs on this topic. So, do you need to learn all of them? Answer is no. You need to learn a few tricks and you can solve most of the number pattern program on your own. If you go through this video, you would be able to make any of these patterns shown and I will explain to you how. When you are solving number pattern program, you will notice there are actually two things which makes the pattern. One is the pattern or shape and second are the numbers which are there inside the pattern. Like over here, the numbers are same but they are in different pattern. Or here pattern is same but each of the triangles have different numbers. If you are new to number pattern programming, first thing you need to remember is that you should not mix the code for these two. Means your program will have two separate logic, one to make the pattern and other to put in the numbers as per the question. Just giving a short example here to explain what I mean. Suppose we have a pattern like this. Many of the kids I teach will start writing the code for an increasing triangle pattern and then use I or j inside print statement as required. They will try to change the values in range function to match the pattern numbers. But the moment they start changing the values in range function, they get confused and any wrong move over here can give a completely different shape. So in this video, while I am teaching you how to make number patterns, I will also explain how to keep these two separate so that your chances of errors are reduced. So let's get started. First thing we need to learn is pattern. It is the shape which contains the numbers. As we just saw, the question can ask you the same numbers in any different shape. So first thing you necessarily need to know is how to form that shape with basic star. If you have not watched my video to create any star pattern program, you need to pause, click on the link given, watch that video and then return. It is very important that you first know how to create the shape with just star, as we are just going to reuse the code here and add the number part. I am giving a quick summary of my star pattern video. What we learnt is that you can make complex shapes by learning to code two basic shapes, increasing triangle and decreasing triangle. Let's see the code for both of them. Increasing triangle has outer loop which has a range function till n and inner loop has range function till I plus 1. Decreasing triangle have outer loop which have range function till n and inner loop from I to n. Inside the inner loop, we have the print statement to print the star and the last statement of the outer loop is an empty print statement which takes you to the next line after a complete row is printed. You need to remember these two pattern codes. Any complex pattern is just broken down to these basic triangles and then just clubbed together in sequence as they appear. For example, here we have first triangle with decreasing space and second triangle with increasing star. So we will write two inner loop like this. If it is a hill pattern, there is another decreasing triangle, so we will put another inner loop. To ensure we have pointed edges, we will have one of the loops print one less column. This code will give an output like this. So when you are given a number pattern, I will assume you do know how to create the shape with star and we are going to just reuse that code to build our number pattern program. Now let's see how we will handle number pattern program. Let's start easy with a single number pattern. Suppose if it was a pattern of just ones. When you solve pattern programs with numbers, you will break your problem into two parts. First, what is the pattern, and second, what are the numbers in it. You will first look at the shape and write the code which is required for that shape. As you see, this is increasing triangle pattern program. We will first get the star pattern program for increasing triangle we had learnt in the star pattern video. So this program solves the first part of creating the pattern. Now we will come to numbers. We see that this has constant same number in the pattern. So only change you need to do here is, instead of star, print the number 1 which is there, and you are ready with pattern code. Now you do know different pattern programs from my star pattern video. This effectively means that in any of those, if you replace star with 1 in the print statement, you can have varied pattern shapes with 1. Now this was too easy. Let's see something more closer to what is actually asked in the exam. Let's take a closer look at this pattern. Again, to solve this, we break it into two parts, pattern and numbers. You know this is incrementing triangle pattern, so you can immediately recall the code which displays incrementing triangle pattern with star. Incrementing triangle has outer range function till n and inner range function till I plus 1. Now that we have the pattern sorted, we will focus on the number. What we see is that the number starts with 1 and is incremented by 1 in each row. So we need 1 to be printed in row 0, 2 to be printed in row 1, 3, 4 and so on. Now which of our loops manages the rows? It is the outer loop. Some of you might just say, I'm actually printing the row number and I variable actually holds the row number, so I can just print I plus 1. This is actually correct and will work. However, if you are new to patterns, I would suggest not to mix indexes used for patterns with actual number printing. So we will not touch the range function for I and j values which are creating our pattern. We will use another variable p. We will initialize p to the first row number of our pattern, which is 1, outside the outer loop. Inside the inner loop, we will print this variable p now. Now we know the last statement of empty print takes us to the next row. So here what we do is increment our p by 1 to get it ready for the next row. Now when you run it, it will give you the output as shown. The same logic we can use for any shape which has row constant, like for the right-sided triangle or hill pattern or any other pattern. Now what if values were 5 first, then 4, then 3, 2, 1. Again we see in a row the same number is printed. So this time we will initialize p to 5 outside the loop. In the inner loop, we print p. Along with moving to next row, we will now decrement p by 1 for the next row. This will again work for all different patterns with decreasing row numbers. Let's take some different pattern this time. Now in this first row starts with 0 and the next row is 2 and then 4 and 6 and 8. Here again we will take the star pattern program and initialize variable p with value printed in the first row, which is 0. In print statement, we will print p. After printing, when we move to next row, this time we will increment p by 2. This will give us code for this pattern. Now let's go a little more complex. What if the pattern was like this? Now here there is no set increment or decrement, but just two values which are alternating. It could be number, pattern or even characters. Now how do we handle this? Let's pick one of them and study it closely. Now we do know how to write a star program for this pattern. Now in row 0, 2 and 4 I want 1 and in row 1 and 3 I want 2 to be printed. So what it is saying is that for even rows print 1 and odd rows print 2. So what we need to do in such scenario is just add an if else around the print statement. We will say if I is even means if I%2 equal to 0, then print 1, otherwise print 2. With just this change, you have your code ready. Now what if the pattern was like this? Again take the code you have for the pattern first. Here in even rows we have hash, so we will have if statement printing hash, else it will print $. Now how does this work for bigger patterns like diamond or butterfly pattern? Let's take diamond pattern as an example. Here we have our star pattern code for diamond. Here instead of star, the expectation is to print increasing row numbers. Now we have two outer loops here. Can you just in both loop add p is equal to 1 before the outer loop, replace star with printing p, and add p plus is equal to 1 before print? If you run this, your pattern will show up like this. Till 4 it was fine, but then it again started from 1. So how will we fix this? The lower loop is actually supposed to start from 5 or same value of p as above. So all we need to do is remove the initialization of p again to 1 second time. Now it will just continue with previous value of p. If you make this change, you will get the code for this pattern. What if the pattern was like this? It is increasing and then decreasing. Here we again take our star pattern code for diamond, which builds the shape for us. I am printing them in 2 columns so that you can see complete code in one screen. Now first we have increasing number pattern. So what we are going to do is, before first loop, we will set p to 1. Inside we will replace all print star with print p. We will increment p before exiting the outer loop. Now in the second loop, we have decreasing numbers. By the end of first outer loop, p has already reached the value of 5. So inside the loop, we will replace print star with print p everywhere. Before moving to next row, now we decrement p every time. This is our code for increasing and decreasing number pattern. You can try alternate numbers, skipping numbers, and try playing around with double row patterns. Now all this was where number in a row was constant. What if there was change in column numbers? Let's see these patterns now. Now we do know that the column printing is managed by our inner loop. What we see in all of these patterns is all rows start with 1 and then increment by 1 till end of the row. Let's take this one as an example. We first get in the code for increasing triangle star pattern. So when columns get incremented, instead of initializing p outside the outer loop, we initialize it as soon as we enter the loop. Moment we enter in the loop, we initialize our variable p to 1. We will print p instead of star. Since now columns are getting incremented, we will move our p plus is equal to 1 also inside the inner loop, which handles the column. So let's see how it will work. So it will start with row 0 and I gets initialized to 0 moment we enter the outer loop. We first initialize p to 1. It then enters inner loop and prints p. However, the inner loop executes only one time, so the print statement is executed and we move to next row with I is equal to 1. It will again initialize p to 1 and then enter inner for loop. It first prints p, which is 1, p is incremented, and then in second pass of inner loop, it prints 2. It then comes out and in row 2, it prints 1, 2, 3, and in row 3, it prints 1, 2, 3, 4, and in row 4, it prints 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Important point to note over here is that p is initialized to 1 every time moment you enter inside the outer loop. This cannot be done outside the loop as the outer loop is executed multiple times, and every time you enter a new row, it needs to be initialized back to 1. Second thing is, we need to increment p every time it is printed. So now our increment statements are inside the inner loop just after every print p statement. Now how does it work for this pattern? Here again we will get our star pattern code for this. We will initialize p to 1 moment we enter inside the first loop. There is no change in the loop for space. We go to the loop which prints star, and instead of star we will print p. After printing, we increment p by 1. This gives us the code for this pattern. How does it work for hill pattern? Again exactly similar. We get in code for hill pattern with star. We initialize p is equal to 1 as first line inside the outer loop, and then just replace star with p and increment p after every print p statement. This is the code for the hill pattern. It will work the same for any double row pattern too, like diamond or butterfly. Try it on your own, and if you are facing difficulty, you can see the code on our website. Now what if it was decreasing pattern? Here let's see two variations of the pattern. One is where it is reducing but starting number is same. Other is where ending number is same, like this one. How will you handle these two? Now the starting number same is very easy and similar to what I showed in incrementing pattern. Just inside the outer loop, you will set p to starting number, which is 5 in this pattern. Then replace all star with p and decrement p inside inner loop after every print p statement. This logic will work for all pattern shapes. But how to handle when start value is different? Means every time you need to initialize p with different value. It should be 5 in the first row, 4 in second row, then 3, then 2 and then 1. Let's start with the code we just wrote for decrementing row pattern. The print statement will still remain the same and there will be decrement of p after the print statement. But how do I give it varying values to start with? If you look closely, the value is n first, then n minus 1, then n minus 2, then n minus 3 and so on. Here I will initialize another variable k outside the outer loop and initialize it with 5 like how we had done for the rows. I will use it to initialize p every time. After printing a complete row, in the end we will decrement it by 1. So here there is combination of two variables, one k to decide upon the starting number of rows and second p to handle the columns. What if the pattern was a hill pattern like this? You just learned how to do increasing number and decreasing number with variable starting number. We will first get our standard program for hill pattern using star. Since it is incrementing columns, we use same starting number. Moment we enter the outer loop, we will initialize p to 1. There is no change in loop printing space. In the next loop, we will change all print star to p and increment p by 1 in the inner loop to get left half of the hill. In the next loop, we are actually just decrementing the same p, so we will just replace star with p and decrement p after the print statement. This should give us the right half and the required pattern. Now next we will do Floyd triangle, which is slightly different. Here if you see, there is no row or column specific pattern. It is just a number which is printed and it is incremented by 1 every time. Here we will just do it a bit differently. We will first get in our code for the increasing triangle pattern. We will initialize a variable outside the loop and every time we print, we will just increment it by 1. For a value of 4 rows, it will give us an output like this. Now you can try any pattern shapes combined with numbers. If you have any doubts, do reach out to us at simplycoding.in. Thank you and goodbye.